Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today the star of the show is going to be a reel I found this weekend at a local flea market. It was attached to a pole and it was surprising to see. I haven't seen one of these in quite some time. It's the Penn Silver Beach 99. And it's funny, as you look at these quickly, you think maybe you're looking at a jig master. Here's a modern day jig master. And sometimes you think you're looking at the Long Beach. Here's another one I picked up at the flea market that's going to need some work. But, you know, you look at them and they all kind of look the same. And that's probably one of the things that Penn was kind of known for, is sharing pieces, parts, and technologies. So the Long Beach is similar to, the Silver Beach is similar to the Long Beach with the 3:0 gear retrieve ratio. It's similar to the Jig Master in that it has the take-apart side plate. And it kind of looks like a Senator with the double metal side plates, where the Jig Master only has the one. So it's kind of, they're not Franken reels, but they are just a little bit of, you know, a difference there to change up on the models. So before we get started with that, let's take a look at what one looks like. I was fortunate enough to find this one quite some time ago. Now I just set it aside because it's really almost new in the box. The box is deteriorated, it's taped, but the Silver Beach, interestingly enough, was selling for $16. And I would encourage any of you that have the chance to go and get a Penn catalog, and that's what I'm going to pull out of this box. But this is new condition, never been used Silver Beach, so you can see what it should look like and what it does look like when it's used after quite some time. But pull the catalogs out of the box. If you can order them on eBay, they really are a lot of fun, just to go back in time and take a look. And this is the catalog that came with the box. It's a catalog number 17. I was trying to find a copyright date. I didn't see it in here, but quite a bit of interesting stuff in here. They tell you a little bit about fishing and what to use, knots and sinkers to tie. And then of course they also go ahead and they show you the lineup and the pricing. So for example, here's a Baymaster, the old 180s, sold for $7.50. And the big old Super Mariner, the 49, sold for $16. So $16 was quite a bit back then. I'm going to guess this is probably the early 60s, although I can't say with certainty. But I guess with a little bit of research we would be able to find that out. So that's one of the reels I have that's never going anywhere. But I just thought I would share that with you as we get to start on the Silver Beach. So we're going to take a look at this reel. As I mentioned, I got it in a garage sale, and just nothing extraordinary about it other than I was surprised to find it out there. You just don't see these around because there's so many different varieties of them. So let's start. It is a take-apart reel, and as you know, I like to start by taking apart the side plate and gears and work on that. I'm assuming I'm going to have to replace the drags on this one, and also with this one, I think we're going to try and make it fish again. Well, oh boy! So here's an example of what happens when you don't take care of a reel. We've got a lot of dried grease in there, and by a lot I mean a lot. So maybe what we'll do with this project as well is show you how to clean all of this stuff up. I had so much grease that it just got thrown onto the side of the spool here, and the spool's got a lot of corrosion. It's been used, and then we got a bunch of stuff in the back here as well, and the grease on the frame side. So let's do some house cleaning first. Try to get some of that grease out of there. So many of you know I recommend using cotton swabs and degreasers and anything you can just to kind of clean up some of the mess. So let's just, I'm going to scrape a lot of this off because it is dried, and you see it just comes up in chunks. I use a paper towel to collect that stuff so that I don't get it all over my table. And then once I get that out of here, while I'm doing this, I'm checking to make sure that the click mechanism looks good, and this one really hasn't been fished with the click mechanism. You can see that the point on it is very pronounced, and that's what it should be. And then I'm just going to take a penetrating oil and just let it kind of soak in there to kind of free up the rest of that grease. So next up we have the side of this. We're going to do the same thing here. Just going to get a little bit of penetrating oil on that to let it act as a lubricant. Hopefully break up some of that. Then I'm going to start with that paper towel first and see if we can't get a lot of that off, and we can. which is fortunate. You can use, if it's particularly difficult stuff, you can use a kitchen scrubby, green pad. I got to cut down to about 2 by 2 inch sides. You can use steel wool to do that. Right now I'm just trying to get the first layer of junk off of that. And then I'm just going to try and get the stuff on that shoulder there. That shoulder is what the spool gear intersects with. You just want to make sure that you don't have a grease buildup there that's going to prevent it from going into the spool gear here. Then I'm just going to take that paper towel one more time, and since I'm going to rebuild the reel anyway, let's just go put a little bit of that WD-40 on there. So WD-40 is kind of a degreaser. I don't recommend it as a lubricant, but it is great in terms of getting some of the hard built-up stuff off of it. I'm going to take all of this apart, but the less grease that's on there when we go to take it apart, the better. There we go. We got some of that off of there anyway. And as you notice, I'm wearing that protective glove on my hand. I really don't like getting this grease and junk all over me. If I could work successfully on my right hand, and I'm right-handed by nature, I would probably find a way to put the glove on there too. All right, so that's that. I'm just going to let that to the side for a moment. I want to show you one more thing while I'm at it. We really don't get onto this too much in house cleaning, but I'm going to show you a little bit of how to get the greening and the corrosion off the spool. I use a chrome polish. In this case, it's an automotive polish. It's turtle wax. I don't know if anybody's got a car that has chrome on it anymore, but the polish is wonderful. I'm going to use a 4-0 steel wool. And I'm just going to put a good squirt on there, on the pad, and then a little elbow grease, if you will. And we're just going to rub hard on that spool. And this is good for taking off a lot of the salt and corrosion on the reel without ruining the chrome. And I'll come back and I'm going to clean that whole frame up. Again, this is an older reel. I don't know if there's anybody even appreciates the reel too much or even knows about the reel too much, but it should go fishing, and I'll clean it up and make it look nice. And what I'm doing here with this chrome cleaner, I want to get that junk off the sides of the spool because the line, can tear up the line. It's corrosive, and it's got some sharp points on it, and if you continue to let your line in and out with the reel, it could fray the line. So let's do the best we can for now without making this a whole video on cleaning up the spool. I'm also going to take that while I have it and just go back over that internal side here. And I suspect that, yep, there's a little bit of junk on this side as well. So that's a nice metal polish. It's got a little bit of an abrasive in it. It's a chrome cleaner. Sometimes you'll see chrome and bug cleaners or something like that at an automotive store or Walmart or something. I find it's very useful in this. And you can see already that it's made quite a difference on the spool. That's not restoring it to new. Nothing's going to restore it to new if it's got that greening and that saltwater corrosion on it. But it certainly is a lot better than it was. So let's go back and do what we set out to do here, which is to make this reel functional. And we can tell we've got a lot of buildup on it. It was kind of hiding in the back of this flea market. The fellow had two poles kind of propped up against his van, and then he had a table set up in front of him with all kinds of bric-a-brac and that. And I would tell you, if you're going to a flea market, just don't look at the obvious, whatever's eye level in front of you on a table. Look around for the whole thing. Sometimes you see rods laying around on the ground. Sometimes you'll find reels in a bucket under a table. They're kind of all over the place because they're not what the people sell normally. And that would be another tip that I would give you on this, is look for the things that are out of place, because you can get a good price on it. So I bought 2 Penn reels. I bought that the Long Beach 60 that you saw there. I bought this 99, and I bought 2 nice poles. One of them was kind of your average pole from a department store. It was a Master, probably from the 80s. And the other one, though, was a custom pole, a 7-foot custom pole. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with that. So I've taken the drag adjuster off. It's got the same dirt on it that the other one did. So while we're at it, we might as well do the house cleaning here as well. And you'll just see how it cuts through all of that grime and grease, and pretty much takes it out in a hurry, right? So I haven't found any other things that are quite like this. I've been used to it. I've been using this for some time. I probably was using it when I was using the clean it, actually clean chrome on my car, but it just it stands the test of time. So we got a shiny one there, and we're going to see the same thing here. So there's no reason to rush when you're doing your real repairs or servicing. Take the extra few minutes, do the cleaning. You know, if you're going to do something, do it right, and you don't have to do it fast. You don't get points for doing it fast, and if you just take it like this, it'll make it look nice. You'll be proud of it. You can not only say, look what I did to restore this reel, you can say, look how nice it looks too, right? So, all right, so that's that. And then we got a ferrule that's got the dried grease on it as well. And the same thing is going to happen here. That steel wool is going to pick that right up. So this is a funny story, I guess, if it's funny. Back in the day, this goes back probably 30 years now, at least, maybe 40 years, probably 40 years, I'm going to say. I picked up, I had one of these reels. I can't even tell you where I got it, but I had one of these reels. I probably, like I do today, probably got it out of a garage sale, flea market. Somebody may have given it to me, I'm not sure. But I wasn't into reel repair at the time. And I got a bird's nest in my reel. It wasn't very good. I was drop fishing it, and it hit bottom. The spool continued to roll, and what happened next was not pretty. And I wrapped the line, somehow I wrapped the line inside the spool. My guess is at the time what happened was I had the burring on the reel too loose, and the line got behind there and inside the spool. Well, regardless, I was on a boat, and I'm fishing, and the captain realizes, I got a mess, and he's got a good mate there. The captain walks over and says, what's going on here? And I explained to him, well, I'm going to spend my day untangling this. I don't know how it got behind the spool, but it did. And he just nonchalantly comes over and grabs the one screw take apart, twists it out, twists the side plate off, pulls the spool, grabs the piece that was caught behind it, puts it back together, and I was off and fishing. And I just said, geez, now there's something I just learned today, that you have these take apart screws. I was totally oblivious to it prior to that. So you can always learn, right? All right, into my parts bucket. I use that parts bucket to keep everything there, just so that I know where to find it when it comes time to put it back together. We've done some house cleaning. Let's do the reel. So this is like any other Penn reel, or most other Penn reels. It's got 4 screws that attach to the back of the bridge plate. Those screws come off to release the internals, so let's go ahead and do that. Now the 2 screws up top are going to be partially threaded, hopefully. The 2 screws below are going to be fully threaded. The reason I said hopefully, I just got a note from one of the folks who watches the channel and said I have a Penn 85, and when I took out all the screws, they were all threaded. Well, that just means that the reel's been repaired, but if it's like they came from the factory, or if they haven't been opened up, or if they've been repaired properly, then the 2 up top, and you'll see this even though they're full of grease, there's partial threads on that, and the ones below are going to be fully threaded. And just make a note of that as you go to reinstall this. That's the way they go. The reason for that is the 2 screws up top, that partial threading acts as a shield to the springs, and they allow the springs to ride nicely on there. Hand on the back, cup this. We have a anti-reverse spring in there that will shoot if you just push it through. So cup your hand, put that there so that you can catch the screw. Push it through gently, no force needed, and then you can see in this case the spring has stuck to the side case. This is the spring. But if you're not careful and you don't know about it, that spring can shoot. So do as I did, or something else. Now what's that something else? Some of the folks that have been viewing, and I love this creativity, said they put it in a 1-gallon plastic freezer bag, like a Glad or a Hefty bag, or whoever's making these bags these days. And That way, if it does shoot, it's contained within the bag as they push that through. Good idea, good suggestion. Okay, the 4 screws are out. Now we've got the trip lever here. This is a jack, the eccentric, a yoke, springs, and a spool gear. We want to get that out so we can service it. This jack is near identical to the, it probably is identical to the Jigmaster. The yoke and gear appear to be that of a Surfmaster. Here's those 2 springs I was talking about. And we just got a bunch of junk inside there, all that accumulated grease. The springs are okay. I'm going to put those into the parts basket. Here's the anti-reverse dog is stuck on the bridge here from all that dried glue. Just going to clean these parts, and again in this case I'm just not going to be able to keep all the grease off my right hand, but we'll do the best I can. Alright, same thing we just did with the other side. I'm just going to push this with a little bit of a little bit more than that. And I'm just going to let that sit for a moment as we go over and we try and clean up the rest of it. You can see just piles of this. That dried grease does impact performance. It makes the reel turn slow. It puts the gearing out of alignment and could cause the reel to chew up. And that's one of the reasons why you should service your reels on an annual basis. Get the old grease out, put the new grease in. It's sort of like the 5,000 mile rule with automobiles and oil changes. Just kind of do yourself accordingly. Alright, I'm checking the teeth now. I want to make sure that they're clean. I got a little wire brush. In this case it happens to be a fabric brush. I'm just going to clear the channels of that spool gear's teeth. I'm checking to make sure that they're not broken, chipped, damaged, bent, or otherwise. This one seems to be in good condition, so that's going in there. Alright, now we have the jack. That's the transition piece between the eccentric and the yoke. This one is chrome plated or stainless or something, and I guess chrome plated. It looks like there's something behind it. That's a brown metal. Clean that one off. We've already cleaned off the yoke. Called the yoke because it looks just like the yoke on a oxen, I guess, or farm animal. 2 posts and power. Okay, now we're over to the main drive gear. So we got a lot of dried grease and junk there. We can just see it accumulated all over the place here. So this reel turned. One of the tips that I always give when I'm saying, you know, evaluating a reel for purchase, a used reel for purchase, and it usually applies to flea markets or fishing sales or something like that. Do what you can to understand what it is that you're buying. Make sure that all of the pieces and parts turn, that the assemblies are complete, that they're not broken. In this case, I've got a broken washer here that I just kind of pulled out. And kind of adjust accordingly in terms of what you're bidding the price on. So this one, as I mentioned, I got two poles, 2 reels that I knew could be restored. None were seriously missing pieces and parts, and got them all for $30. So that was fair. But if I was, let's say this reel has got a value of $25 or $30 to it. If I was trying to figure out what I got and what I don't have, you may take off a couple of dollars, or take off a couple of dollars because it's missing a handle, for example, or the handle's broken, or the knob is loose, or something like that. Okay, I just got the junk off that side. This side we pretty much got clean. Again, I'm using my kind of all-purpose steel wool for that. That's clean. Now we're going to go take the gear sleeve off. We're going to want to do that again because this has got a lot of dry grease in it, and you want to make sure that as you're doing this service that you do it right. This gear sleeve is held in by a pin. You saw me pushing it through with a pin there, and that's kind of the only way you can get it out. I just found these at Harbor Freight. Dental tools, right? Test probe set. This is very similar to what I use. It's a straight shaft metal thing. I think it wasn't much, $2.99, $3.99 US. Relatively inexpensive. The pin goes in there. We should be able to pull this shaft off. I'm checking to make sure this piece is on it. This piece breaks off occasionally on these types of reels. Want to make sure that that's nice and clean so that when we go back to put it together that it spins freely. When I did that, another chunk of dry grease came out. Also, you can see the residual all around that sleeve, so let's get that off as well. And I'll just grab my steel wool for this. So we're talking about a lot here. We're talking about buying these things used, repairing them, a little bit of the history of them. If you have ideas, things you want me to do videos on while I try to entertain myself with this stuff, let me know, and I'll try to get to them. Alright, I use a cotton swab to go through the inside of this because grease does dry in there. And I can reinstall that and this. And sometimes you can push this back in. Sometimes it requires a little help. I have a dead blow hammer here. Good there. Okay, let's get over to the drag stack. I'm going to replace these. We already saw that the one broke. I'm going to assume that none of these are any good. These are the old style washers in here. And they've run their course. You can see they've lost their flexibility. They're kind of a fabric-y washer. I'm going to go to these are the same washers as the Long Beach. So we can just go ahead and grab the Long Beach modern washers. Again, we can see that we got the top metal has got all that goop and glop on it. So let's use our piece here. Other than that, these metal washers are not scarred. There's no corrosion on them, so there's no need to replace them. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have to. Okay, so that's those. Let's get the cap washer while we're at it. Alright, one good stead there. And let me just go off camera for a second and get myself those washers for the Long Beach. I keep a pile of those around. They are fairly common common washers that I use. I do a lot of repairs on the pen reels, as you might imagine. So one of the sources for them out there that I usually get questions about is where do I get the pen parts, and a good source for that is mysticparts.com. They're located in New Jersey. They are a regional repair facility for pen, and nice guys down there. They generally can get you what you need, and what I need at the moment is those Model 60 washers. I'm sure I've got them in here. Just a matter of finding them. I found one. Problem is I got so many washers. Interestingly enough, they're all pretty much, as the red one I need, interchangeable. So if you've got there's number 2 and 3. Number 2. If you've got a Delmar, if you've got a Model 85, if you've got the 60, the 65, all of those will be interchangeable. This is the red one I was looking for that was brittle and broken, and I guess that came from another reel that had more going on wrong with it than right with it. Okay, so let's go put this back together then. So the bridge, and we get that hard red washer, and we get the main gear. There's a little bit of chunk on the back of that main gear. You want to do the same thing with the main gear that you did with the spool gear. You want to check the teeth, make sure that there's no dents, dings, broken teeth, etc. You can clear that out again with that wire brush. You could also use a pick if you want to run each channel. You could do other things, just make sure it's clean. That goes on. Then the setup on the drags, then it goes a fabric washer, the metal washer, the eared washer, the fabric washer, the other round washer, and the cap washer. That's how they go. And because these are fabric, I'm going to use drag grease on them. I use Cal's Universal Drag Grease. Sometimes you'll see it out there as Okuma/Cal's. Regardless, put a little bit on each side, rub it in with your glove, use that as a tool. That goes in. Second one, now the metal. Do the second one on the fabric washer. And you'll notice that these washers are different than the ones that came off the reel as originals. These are got a kind of a grid pattern on them. That's the newer ones that are out there now. And I think these might be the HT100 with the core inset. I'm just not sure. Just pulled them out of the rack there. Last of the metal and cap washers. So that's how you rebuild the drag stack. And those washers can go in the trash. Let's go back to that side plate which has been soaking. We'll do a quick clean off of the grease there. Go back to my paper towel to get what I can get out of that channel. And again, grease is a good thing. Dried grease and old grease is not a good thing. Too much grease is probably not a good thing either. Right, I use the cotton swab then to get in where I can't get in. This is the channel that the spool gear rides in. And again, we've got some pretty dried stuff there. And you can probably start seeing now why I like these rubber gloves. It just helps manage the mess. There's no reason, though, to say that the reel's no good because it's got a lot of dried grease in it. And actually, the dried grease probably saved this reel at some point. At least it was cared for. It may not have been cared for timely, but at least it was cared for. I see a lot more damage from no grease than old grease or dried grease. Okay, we're almost done with this. I'm just kind of continuing just to scrape a little bit of that off. The channels are clear. That's what I'm looking for. The rest of it is more cosmetic. I think we can do one more squirt of that penetrating oil. One more quick wipe down with the cloth. Take a half turn with your screwdriver. Just enough to set that screw. And I like to set the jack down, come over to the other side and grab a screw for the top corner plate. Work that in. You can take a visual on that to see if you're squared up. Sometimes you need to use that pin to make sure that the spring and everything is out of the way. Right now I'm having a little trouble with the jack lining up, but I think I got it now. That felt better. Don't force anything when you're doing these. There you go, we got that one. And again, I'm not driving them down. Go to the bottom side, other side. I'm doing an X pattern here. Get that one to grab. Come on up top for the last one. And once you feel that they've all grabbed, and I'm not feeling this last one grabbing yet. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing I just did with the other one. Take that centering pin. That should work. There's a hole inside that jack, as you noticed, and you just want to, I'm sorry, the yoke. Just want to make sure that you have the clearance. Okay, we got the four together now. When you get the four together, you can tighten them all down. And make sure they're tightened. Vibrations in boats and general usage will loosen these up if they're not tight. All right, last one. And you want to give it a test drive and make sure it works. Make sure the anti-reverse works, and we're working. So couple of dollars, we've got a good reel here. Now the ferrule goes on. A nice shiny star adjuster goes on. Cleaned up handle goes on. Now we're not done with the star adjuster yet, but you can hold the handle now and get the leverage so that you don't turn it. Could put a little oil where Penn says oil. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in that hole there. That's going to keep that shaft, see it says oil, that's going to keep that shaft nice and oiled, working smoothly. and then we can put the handle screw in. And I like to get it started as much as I can by hand, just so I don't cross strip it, and then we can use the wrench to finish that. Now if you want to oil that shaft and don't want to take the handle off, there is a little punch hole here in the middle. I'll show you that in a second. Alright, I am lining up this hole with the indentation of that screw, but if you wanted to oil without taking that off, just use that pin again, push in, and that will allow you to oil the internals of that sleeve. Okay, and now the last piece of this is that set screw for that handle tie-down screw. And we should be able to just put it all back together now pretty quickly. I'm going to grab the side plate that's been sitting. Just going to take that cloth there and get that last little bit of grease off. There we go. That's off. I'm going to put some fresh grease into that bearing. Grab that nice clean spool. Side plate. Make sure that you screw down that tie-down screw. And there we go. So $15 with a pole, flea market find. Penn 99 Silver Beach, ready to go fishing again. So we're good on the spool adjuster. If you needed to tighten that up, there should just be a little bit of knock like you can hear there. If you needed to tighten it up, adjust your bearing side plate bearing. There you go. Penn 99 Silver Beach. If you haven't seen it, if you find one, don't be afraid to pick it up. It's a nice reel. It's got a lot of parts that can still be purchased if you need it. You saw we put new drags in there that happen to be Penn 60 drags. The internals are pretty much a Long Beach. What can I say? It's a good reel, good price, ready to go fishing. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.